I'm recording. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the April 26th, 2021 Kingston City Land Bank Board meeting. My name is Mike Gilliard. I serve as the Executive Director. For members of the public who may join during this meeting, we reserve the right to eject anyone from this meeting who is acting inappropriately, and we ask that all members of the public keep their comments, for which there are 2 periods at the beginning and end of the meeting, to 2 minutes per speaker. With that, I'll turn it over to Daniel Cantor, our board chair.
Hello and welcome. Thank you. We all know why we're here. Let's dive in. Can we, real quick, vote to adopt prior meeting minutes before I forget?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor of adopting March 2021's meeting minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. All right, so busy month at the land bank. So I think kind of probably the biggest, longest, hardest fought piece of news is that we, with much help from Mike and Bob and really everyone else, submitted our list to Mayor Noble and the city of Kingston for addressing all of the 36 properties that were on the 2018 Resolution 172. So we are accepting and plan to purchase various properties. We are rejecting and do not plan to purchase various other properties. Right after I shut up, we have a little time for Steve to address this directly with us. So hopefully he supports our choices. So that feels like a good weight lifted. And so the ones that we have accepted, I believe all have clean and insurable title, all have either clean environmental or, a fairly minor issue that we can deal with. And so we will proceed with those purchases over the coming months, as well as developing pathways that we want to take with each property with community involvement. So we're talking about that a lot at acquisition disposition, which Bob will report on later. Otherwise, we, I believe, have finally officially purchased 149 Greenkill, Mike? Yes, okay. So we got our title and it has been filed and we own 149 Greenkill. So the clean out crew came and went end of last week. And so now we have a pretty empty building, which is kind of surreal after seeing it so full of stuff. Mike was super on the ball with the oil tank remediation. So that was done, like blinked and I missed it, but it happened. So that was great. And then on the pilot front, we got on the agenda of the Finance and Audit Committee of the Common Council this month and advocated for us to be authorized to purchase 124, 126 Franklin. As you guys might know, that was the building on Franklin Street that was slated to become additional office space for the city and house land bank staff. That plan was a few years old and we didn't feel it was appropriate. And so we are asking for permission to purchase that building, also for the price of the back taxes, which is about $20,000. So right in the same range as kind of everything else. And that would be our 5th and final pilot home for this year. And so completion on that, I think, would be slated for about February and right around there. And I think it would be a really exciting project. So if you happen to run into your council member, want to make a phone call, feel free to remind them that this vote is coming in May, and we sure would appreciate their support so that we can get that building done after sitting vacant for roughly 40 years. So kind of cool. On the construction front, things are moving along pretty well. 64 Van Buren had sheetrock going up at the end of last week. Front porch is about to start getting rebuilt. Fence stuff is in progress. Roof has been replaced. All the rough-ins are done and passed, and the house is mostly re-insulated and windows are in. It's all very exciting over there. 174 Hasbrook is like our little problem child. So we very quickly after the contractors started ran into some pretty significant structural issues, called in an engineer, got an engineering report. It was not especially kind. The laundry list was long. And so we accepted the change order to go ahead and do all of this work to really stabilize the structure and make sure that it is safe and okay in the long haul for the family that will eventually buy it. And so that's all very good. And so that project is a little bit delayed because of all of that happening at the front end, but we're working with the contractors to keep things on schedule relatively and get that project done. So it's gonna be fine. And then 248 Main is coming along really, really well. They did a whole bunch of grading work last week, so it looks totally different. The yard is completely clear. Bartech came out and marked all plants that should stay and be retained, so that was super helpful. And yeah, it's going along well. I think they're slated to be done with that, I think at the end of May or early June. So it's going to be great. I think that's likely to be the first house that gets completed, but we'll see. Aside from that, I don't think I have much more. Mike, am I missing anything important? All right then. So with that, I will pass it to Mayor Noble.
Thanks, Daniel. I want to first start by thanking everyone on the Acquisition and Disposition Committee who worked so hard to be able to prepare the letter that I was sent recently related to the properties that the Kingston City Land Bank would like to move forward with. I wanted to just one, say thanks, and two, let you know my process here on out. I'll be sending a communication to our council president this week with your letter and with my recommendations to concur with your committee's recommendation for other properties, and adding a recommendation that I have, which I hope that the Land Bank will support, that the City Council not only update that resolution that they passed back in, a couple of years ago, but to either add a new resolution that would allow the land bank to have a right of first refusal for all single family properties. And we can talk about the logistics of exactly the language, and that's why I wanted to have that conversation briefly with everyone tonight, but to basically give the land bank the right of first refusal, and to be able to then get a period of, I think, 60 days to be able to review the properties prior to having to give a decision to the city. I felt it was important to have some sort of time frame so that the land bank would be able to come back to the city as to, yes, we would like to have the first shot at purchasing that property or not, and to be able to allow the land bank to do their due diligence. And so my interest tonight is to be able to have a better understanding from the board as to, I was hesitant to say right of first refusal for all properties, because that could end up having the land bank, be having to look at a ton of vacant corner little parcels or a ton of properties that may not be suitable. But I wanted to see if there's any specific language you would like me to use in that letter. Should we confine it to single family homes? Should we confine it to single and two family homes? Should it be all properties? I'm interested in hearing people's feedback before I finish that. Let me just read the language that I have so far, just so I can get it right. Right now I have it for all tax foreclosed properties is the language that I currently have in the letter. But I wanted to just make sure that that was okay, or if there was any suggestions on changing that. Go ahead, Daniel. This is your meeting. Go ahead.
I think a couple questions. I guess the first is, I guess I'm concerned that while I fully believe that this is the good policy and what ought to happen, I guess, is there kind of a major time pressure that you see to sort of do this now versus in a few months? Like, I just sort of trying to feel out the temperature of the council. Like, I think it feels to me like we have a couple of people who really don't like us and mostly people who are sort of politely on board and hoping for the best, but maybe not fully convinced. And I think that's kind of fair given where we are. So I guess just from kind of a political standpoint, like to me, it would make sense to wait a little bit until we have like a couple of homes done and people can really see what we do. But
I think my sense is that by presenting the letter that you've prepared to the Common Council, it's going to open up a discussion about on the Common Council side of what to do with those properties that you have rejected, and what they're going to. And I'm saying in my letter that I'm going to also ask for time to be able to present them with a plan for the rejected properties. But I think that they are very quickly going to pivot to what are we doing with the properties that we've taken in 2019 and 2020 that are not on the original list, which you guys have not yet addressed. And there aren't as many, but there are a handful plus of properties. And my sense is that there is an intent by the council to move those properties forward quickly. And I think without a policy in place, the council can either transfer them, they could themselves choose to transfer them to the Kingston City Land Bank, or they could follow general municipal law, which is through auction or sale. So I felt like this would be maybe the time to have the policy discussion. And that's why I thought of having it all done at the same time would allow us to kind of set that in place at the beginning.
that makes sense. Bob.
First of all, thank you, Steve. I think it's a good idea. I think the right of first refusal for us would be great. You know, there's a couple of properties on the list of those that have been taken that I'm coveting right now. There's one on Down Street, for example. So having the ability to move forward on them, I think would be useful. It might force us to make decisions more rapidly than we would like if they do it quickly on some of the properties. But we don't have to necessarily close on them if we have the right of first refusal, I think. I don't know how you feel about that. If, for example, if it's on the list and we say, gee, that's a great potential building, we'd like it, hold it for us or we'll take it, but we won't be able to close for, whatever, 6 months or 8 months. Is that a problem? Do you see that as a problem?
I think that, the capacity for us to close on properties is limited. So I think that we already have kind of a built-in timeline of, 60 days of due diligence. And then if there is an interest to move forward, there then needs to be a negotiation with the Common Council over price. And then there needs to be the closing process, and inspections and all that, right? So I do think that you'll be at that time frame pretty quickly on any new properties that haven't already been investigated. But through some of our other grant funds that we have in the city, in my housing department, we're also doing title searches on all of these properties, including the ones that are not currently on the list of 36. And so we will have hopefully done a good portion of the due diligence for you as well, which again may not help your question because it may hasten the properties, but at least it'll be a little bit less work that the land bank will have to do going forward, thanks to this grant funding that we have.
Yeah. I'd also suggest that we're not interested in residual properties. You know, vacant lots, you know, parcels, residual parcels. I don't think they really meet our mission, but I could be wrong. That's my opinion. Others may have different opinions on that.
I would actually disagree with that just on the basis of like, you know, dealing with side lot dispositions, for instance, is super common land bank behavior. It's not necessarily what we're doing right now, but I think having a right of first refusal on all properties really just means that, at least for now, we're probably just going to reject all vacant ones, but it would leave it open in the future for us to undertake some of that stuff that's just more transactional and normal activity. And I would also say, if we are going to limit it, I would definitely include multifamily or at least duplexes, because that's such a good affordable home ownership opportunity for somebody, you know, in many ways easier than a single family because you get rental income. So, but I would say all properties, and we're just very unlikely to acquire vacant ones for the time being.
Daniel, you got two hands raised. I'm learning the Zoom
Karen.
etiquette here.
Oh, there's a little symbol. Oh. Karen or Aneshka fight over it. I don't know.
Thank you. That's actually the very first time I've ever used that, but I read recently that it's the correct way to do it. So giving it a try. But thank you. So I was wondering, what if we, Steve, were to propose like a working group of several, and maybe this is just opening the door way too wide, but seeing if several council members would want to meet with land bank members over a period of a few months, you know, put a short time limit on it, to really sort of discuss like what the land bank processes, priorities, and address concerns from the Common Council, and kind of fine tune. I think the right of first refusal idea is fantastic, but maybe fine tune it, you know, as to what that looks like, in a way that's, you know, maybe more collaborative, just because it has been, the land bank has become a bit of a, I don't want to, I'm going to say target. I don't want to use the word target, but it certainly attracted some difficult conversations. So that would be my thought, that, you know, might actually kind of improve relations possibly with the council.
Yeah, my thought is that, you know, when this gets proposed to the Common Council, this would go to the Finance Committee. And the Finance Committee will, you know, talk about this. They may invite you to attend the meeting to go over your letter with me, I would assume. But, you know, they do run into issues as a Finance Committee where, you know, not more than, you know, 2 members can gather to talk about Finance Committee business without having issues with open meetings law. So I think an offer to the Common Council to see if there was, you know, if the Common Council president was at least interested in maybe appointing a liaison to the land bank. So you at least have one member of the Common Council that maybe is more engaged, that would even be willing to sit on the acquisition and disposition committee, could possibly go a long way in helping to kind of have the communication kind of go 2 ways, you know, for the land bank and the city council. But, you know, again, I think that could be something that's thrown out to them, you know, as part of kind of opening a dialogue.
I don't know. I mean, I would leave that maybe to acquisition disposition committee, but part of me fears someone sitting on that committee might, I don't know, make it difficult for the land bank to kind of operate really separately and independently without, you know, potential of becoming politically engaged in some way, or I don't know.
You can't actually do that just legally.
Oh,
Yeah. Non-board members can sit on advisory committees, but the acquisition disposition committee is not an advisory committee. Right, Mike?
okay.
Yeah. Just
So I guess my point is that it's hard to bring them in if we don't want them to come in. So we either have to decide we want to be open and work with them, or not. So
What if there were a sort of more quarterly reporting to a liaison, you know, more regular, as in quarterly reporting or discussion meeting with a liaison that could report back?
yeah, I mean, I think
Things out.
one of the options has always been, I think, you know, the depending on, being that these properties are all being transferred and sold to the finance committee, is working with the finance committee chair, which is Rennie Scott Childress, to meet with their committee often, once every couple of months, to just give an update on, you know, they sold you the property. So they could be a good committee to go back to say, hey, just wanted to give you an update. This is where we are. This is the progress. This is, you know, because of your interest in working with us, this is what we've been able to get accomplished. I think that could be a good way to keep that committee at least kind of informed and educated, so that the next time you're in front of them asking to purchase something, you know, they'll be updated to the work that you're doing already.
I would be super happy to do that. I have made the request before, but I can certainly try again to like, just give me 5 minutes at like every other meeting or something, just so that we're all kind of staying in touch. Because I agree with Karin. I think like what I'm sort of seeing is just a lack of kind of basic background information. And I think there's a lot that we can do to kind of educate the council on this issue. And Karin and I have actually talked about this, and I've kind of started it, like actually looking into what happened to properties that the city sold within the last like 10 years, and actually having real data behind everything that we're saying, because I think it backs it up that, you know, it did not lead to good outcomes generally. So I think if we can like get that information to them too, it's helpful. Because I think right now, at least my experience at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting for Franklin was like, it almost became an opportunity to like relitigate like why the land bank even exists. And like, you know, that's not what it was about. And I don't think is a productive conversation, but it is valid to have questions about it. And I think if we have like real data, we can answer them a little bit better than just sort of narrative experience. Sorry, Aneshka, you have something to say.
Yeah, just adding on to the concerns of how we swing this through communication and collaboration and the political aspects of working with the council. My main concern here is having toured all the houses this weekend. It was so enlightening. And if you haven't done that yet, really try to get that done as part of your commitment to the land bank as directors. It's very eye-opening to see the built environment of Kingston under so much stress. And one of the concerns that I have is we're looking at not just a few houses, we're looking at many houses, right? They're probably going to keep us busy for a long time. If we do this sort of 5 houses a year schedule, and then also not to speak of, you know, who will fund the kind of renovations that in many cases are necessary, what are we taking on? And I really do like the idea of right of first refusal, but then I don't think we can just quickly go there, because we need to understand what happens to the houses that we do refuse to take on, right? Are those like immediate demo projects, demolition projects? I do also think that the it shouldn't only be family units. It should also include property. Eventually, the land bank may expand in the future toward, not that anything that we do is written in stone right away, but we need to look at all of our contribution to the city as a sort of citywide kind of picture, right? We can't just, right now we're working in all parts of the city, which is really interesting. But I think it's a big thing to take on, and I don't know if 60 days is even enough to get a review of properties going. That's like, although thank God, Steve, I'm so glad that you're considering doing title searches on everything before we consider these things, because that's what's been really hanging us up very badly so far. So just, I would be treading on into this territory very carefully. And I don't think that we should rush into it without really framing it correctly, right? So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, the 60 days I think is a little bit concerning. So I have a question, I guess, is in many other places, when the municipality does a title search, it also basically ensures the land bank and the next purchaser. Do you know if that's the way that the housing office is doing this? Because it would certainly benefit us, because it's great for them to do it. Technically, we would still need to do our own, I believe, and it doesn't protect the family, who then also has to do their own. But this is done elsewhere as the one-step solution.
I think that there is definitely interest on our end to do that. I do think that what we found is that most of the title companies that want to work with the land bank or the city don't do that work currently. So we are trying to, get, the city has partnered with a new local title company that has done title work in this city for a long time, but isn't currently in use by the city or the land bank. And so we're hoping that maybe this other company will be more willing to do that full circle, title insurance. But again, we'll have to see. I mean, so far though, that I don't think any of us have been successful in getting that firm identified as to who will do that, for us. But I will say that, our goal is to definitely, help this process. I just, the reason that I felt like we needed to have some timeframes in there is that we just, I think for the Common Council's perspective, at any point they can choose to sell a property or not. And I think if we go too far out with a window, I do think that we run the risk of them souring on this concept, because I think that they don't want to have what happened in 2018 happen again. And so maybe in the future, if we get this policy adopted as is, we could go back to them and say, we want to change this policy to go longer, because this is why, and look at all the progress that we've made. I feel like right now, though, we kind of want to at least, maybe for these next, and we only have about 6 or 7 houses total that we're talking about here for the last 2 years. So I think for those 6 or 7 or 10, we've pretty much identified that some of them are multifamily, like a 4-unit that has people, we're not going to want that one. And there's a couple of others that we already know about. So I will say that policies can change, resolutions can change very easily, just like we're changing this resolution from 2018. I wouldn't get caught up too much on the letter of the law, because as Common Councils, remember, these folks they get elected every 2 years. And so that's also the learning curve is that, you know, no matter what happens in November, there's going to be 3 new council members in January. There could be as many as 5 new council members depending on how the election goes. So just it'll be a relearning experience for everyone all over again. It also gives people the opportunity to reset, you know, and for us to hit the reset button with new members who haven't been around and haven't had this last 2-year experience. But it is always going to be harder for us to kind of create those relationships with a common council that changes so frequently.
Steve, why does the 2018 resolution have to be amended?
Well, because right now the council said that those 36 properties could be sold to you. We need to change that 36 to 20 some, which will then allow the common council to do something different with the ones that you've rejected. Because eventually they're going to need resolutions saying this property X needs to get put up for public auction or needs to be turned into a park or whatever. So we can't have conflicting resolutions that allow the same property to be dealt with differently, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mike, do you have a question?
I do, but I'm in terms of Zoom etiquette, I think Serena was first, or maybe Bob. Sorry.
I just have a very brief statement of support. I think that the right of first refusal is an asset to the board. And if we don't have the bandwidth to deal with the property, 60 days is not going to make an appreciable difference. So I don't think we're going to get ready to deal with the property in 60 days. So I think that to me seems like it's a reasonable time frame to just say yes or no. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that I think that we have a lot of responsibility to the public. And we've discussed that ongoing to give them information and to be transparent. And I think that using our elected representatives as a conduit for that and as a, you know, as partners in that is really the best way that we can do that. That it's not really, you know, we shouldn't feel like we need to represent it alone, that the Common Council is with us on that. They passed the resolution. They want to help us with our work. And I think that they can help us field those questions to the public and be part of that process. I don't think that we should exclude them from that in any way, if it's possible. That was all. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Thank you.
I just have 2 quickies. I think 60 days is enough time to make a decision. Like all we're doing is making a decision, yes or no, we want to buy it. First off, and I think it opens a door for an opportunity for those in the council who are desperate to sell something at auction, the opportunity to do so, which I think they can knock themselves out trying that, and it wouldn't hurt us if they did that on a one that we rejected, and we could track and see where it goes. So that's my.
Mike.
Thank you, sir. Just to add to what Bob said about the timeline, I think for what it's worth, I think we could certainly conduct levels of due diligence on our own within that time frame. But I would like to ask if this is the time frame that the clocks start ticking when the land bank has received a title report and keys to the property. It doesn't seem like much, but if we could establish something like that as a starting point for the clock, I think it would really help us internally to be able to conduct the same process. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think my sense with that one is that for now, with these properties in particular, being that we have grant funding to be able to provide title reports for these properties, I think that makes a total sense. And if we have keys, some of these properties don't have keys, but yes, if we have keys, I think, you know, that's fine. I do think that going forward, you know, in 3 or 4 years from now, it would generally be, it's usually not, the city has not usually run title reports for properties that it's trying to dispose of to any of the buyers, whether it's the land bank or anyone else. And so I think it may be a tough ask to have the city provide title to the land bank. I think that they may say, this is part of your due diligence, you guys do it, and we don't want to be involved in your decision-making process, because what if we messed up the title report or used a company that you didn't like, or so I do think that it could definitely be discussed, down the road. I mean, for now, I think we'll be good for the next batch of properties, because we have this grant funding that's specifically designed to do title reports for a bunch, dozens and dozens and dozens of properties that we could end up taking. But I do think that it's that will be another level of commitment that the city would need to make to the land bank. Because the type of title report that, say, our corp counsel does to serve notice in the in-rem process is not the same quality title report that a land bank would need to potentially feel comfortable buying it. And I think that that's the discrepancy, and maybe we'll figure that discrepancy out internally with the city, because there's a difference between like last owner searches and a 40-year look back. And so that may be the difference there for us.
Okay.
I think,
Sorry, Daniel, I cut you off. I was just going to say, I think that would have been helpful for these 36 too, to have the prior ownership studies as well. So anything we could get, from my opinion, would be helpful.
Yeah, understood.
I mean, I think the concern is that we can move as fast as we want, but ultimately, like, the title searches really hinge on the corp counsel's office, providing what they need to provide. And that so far could easily tank a 60-day timeline on just one property, let alone 10. So and then my other major concern with the 60 days is the funding, because we do not operate as a regular land bank so far. And so the commitment to buy a property comes with quite a large price tag. And if, in the past, we've had to spend a lot of time getting the funding in order to actually buy anything. And so if it's, say it's 10 properties, it's probably about $250,000 under the current acquisition policy. And that's not to say we can't get $250,000, but getting it in 60 days while also doing a ton of due diligence, I think, is an extremely heavy lift. So,
I mean, I'm happy to suggest 90 days instead in my letter. I'm open to, the feedback from the board. If you think that 30 days will make a difference, I'm happy to suggest that. But obviously my suggestions in the resolution, as you all have seen, doesn't mean that my word is, the council is going to do what the council wants to do, regardless of what I suggest for the resolution. So I could suggest 60, I could suggest 90, but they could turn it to 30 and pass a resolution that states that. So just to be clear, like I don't have full control. So I just, but if 90 would make people feel more comfortable, I can plop that in there and see how it goes with the council.
it definitely would make me feel better. And I think maybe the solution Mike suggested is not exactly the right one, but if we can brainstorm how to make it contingent on us, like, being able to do the due diligence that we're supposed to be able to do in that 90 days, like, that would be good, because I feel like this policy could be very vulnerable to people not wanting us to do the thing that we're supposed to do and making it very difficult to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the concept here is that the Common Council kind of sets the general policy direction, and it really is up to the mayor, to be honest, at the time, whoever that is, you know, we know a year in advance what properties we're pretty much going to be taking. We start the title searches 9 months in advance. We then issue 90-day letters to the homeowners saying, you know, you have 90 days to redeem your property. We then, you know, have to wait for a judge to issue, you know, the paperwork and to file it, and then to get the property transferred in the city's name. So we know many, 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 many months. And during that entire time, if we have a willing mayor who wants to work with the land bank, there should be ongoing discussion during that entire process, so that when it officially comes time for the mayor to say to the land bank, I'm now officially presenting this to you, or what would probably happen is I would present these properties to the Common Council as properties that would need to be, that are prepared to be ready for sale. And then the council would say, well, according to our policy, we have to go to the land bank first. But by that point, there should be a whole lot of information. There should be a whole lot of dialogue, and you all should have been very involved in that process up until that point. And so I do think that that's the way I'm envisioning it. Of course, if you have an administration that is unwilling or uninterested in working with you, and you don't hear about the properties until the time that the Common Council, you know, puts out their notice, and then starts the clock, I agree that the 60 days may then be very short. But I hope that at least for the next 3 years, you're stuck with me whether you like it or not. And so, you know, we're, I think, going to be able to get through much of this. And so that's my thinking there, on that part anyway.
Karen.
Thanks. I'm just going to go back to what I first, you know, asked if it could be considered that, you know, maybe if you do present a resolution to amend the 2018 resolution regarding the houses, or the properties rather, that were proposed for the land bank to take, and, you know, lay out in that resolution which properties the land bank is not accepting. But I wonder, I just really feel like there's room here for a working group, you know, for like 3 months, even if it is just 2 members of the finance committee, the Common Council Finance Committee, and 2 board members or more land bank board members to really, you know, kind of hammer out what would be reasonable in terms of either a right of first refusal or some other process. If there's a way of, you know, injecting into the process by which the Common Council comes to prepare which properties are going to be presented to the land bank, you know, an earlier alert as to which those properties those are going to be. I don't know. I feel like there's benefit, you know, rather than us trying to scramble in this one meeting to come up with a solution that, you know, can be put into this one resolution. Anyway, I'm perfectly happy with being downvoted on that, obviously, but I just feel like it just feels like a lot, like we're trying to scramble and come up with, you know, I think on its face, a 60 or 90-day right of first refusal sounds perfectly great, but, you know, obviously we've, you know, had some pretty rough lessons learned, and I'd love to see if there's a more collaborative way of figuring out a process for that, and collaborative with the Common Council and their buy-in.
So there is a provision in the New York State Land Bank law, Mike, tell me if I'm flubbing this, but basically that the land bank at a municipal auction sale can essentially outbid anybody, and they don't actually pay that sum, but it's pretty much dibs on whatever they want from the auction. I believe that has to be enacted by the council to be the policy, but I think that would actually be a slightly more traditional way that this gets done. Mike, am I just,
You're testing my memory and I'm not 100% sure what my recollection is. Probably it would be better served if I just researched it and sent something around after the meeting. Talk about it. Does ring a bell? I do think you're right that there is a stipulation that land banks can essentially pay the value of back taxes and in essence have a right of first refusal at auction, but you're shaking your head no. So see, I shouldn't have opened
it's
my mouth.
still a dollar transfer, but
Hmm.
they basically can raise their paddle or whatever, and their bid just cancels pretty much everyone
I think we
else.
should research it and come back. But
Yeah.
just to maybe
Don't take
move it
this.
along a little bit, in the interest of time, is there, Mayor Noble, would you like us to?
I think that's all really good feedback for me. I still think that as part of my communication to the council, I'm going to plant the seed that there should be a right of first refusal in some way, shape, or form that's given to the land bank for on properties not included in resolution 172. And that, I'm assuming during the committee meeting, they'll either want to, speak on logistics to that, or they'll agree to that language immediately, or which I think is, or there'll be further opportunities for us to, between now and, the mid-May finance meeting, to kind of frame our language a little bit tighter around what we want to do, because we would have 3 or 4 weeks and between now and then to work on it. But I do think that it's important for us to plant the seed, because I do think that some council members have already publicly expressed that they want to auction off properties. And so if we don't have a backup plan, that will get presented to the common council. And I'm not sure that there is enough dissension to not allow that to happen at this point in time. So thank you for the feedback tonight. And I think that was really helpful.
Before we table this discussion, may I be a little bold and jump in here? First of all, I think the right of first refusal is not something that any of us object to. So for you to plant that seed, especially as a protective measure, again, we're playing politics here, right, Steve? So I think that might be a good sort of protective measure to go forward with. How we iron out the details of that, I think one of the things that I'm hearing from Karen, which I'm really in support of, is we have this kind of siloing between the KCLB and the Common Council that is so totally not in the spirit of running a city together, right? It's like, why is that? And how does that actually come to pass? So I do think that we need to work more collaboratively, and that there need to be measures in place to almost force that, right? So I agree with Karen's kind of ideas, and obviously these are very new ideas, so we need to talk about them.
I just
I
have-
had my hand raised, so I'm going to speak since
Please do.
and very quickly, 2 things. I think one, I think the right of first refusal is great. It seems to me that it needs to, I agree with all the things about moving it quickly. It seems to me like the most simple thing around the language is just Daniel and Mike having been, and maybe Bob as well, having dealt with this title stuff the most. Like, I think you two should just spend whatever amount of time you need to put what the language that you think needs to be in there around the timing and the information we need to be able to make an assessment and get that to Steve before the May meeting. I think my concern on not having that is just because we know that there's council members who want to auction things and may want this to not work. If we get the right of first refusal and then are like systematically unable to make an assessment and then pass, it's going to just come back on us as if we were inept or whatever. So I just think that if the two of those, you guys could put that language together, that'd be great. I think I agree that we need to collaborate better with the council. I feel like this, like kind of a 3-month process to create like a thing around right of first refusal is not productive, and that we should find meaningful avenues for collaboration that aren't just sort of about process, because I think that just isn't fun. So we should continue to talk about how to collaborate better. And then I just wanted to note this for like future conversations. It is true, like next year, we're going to have a lot of new council members. And if our experience on how the council has worked so far is correct, and from what I know of some of the people running, it's going to be a whole new group of people who come in who know nothing. So if we can get through this year, I would have us really think about a January, like orientation, friendly, welcoming for the new council as a really good place to start thinking about, we should do stuff for the rest of this year too, but I think that should be a marker that we have for how we want to orient and educate and build relationships with the new people coming in, so that they're kind of from jump really like on board with us and good. Not that we shouldn't deal with the people who are there now, but just putting that on our calendar to be prepared for.
I agree. Bob, were you trying to say something?
I was going to say, and this is not to be a downer, but, bear in mind, the council, to some extent, given our past 2 years, we haven't necessarily established a lot of credibility with them yet. We will this summer and we will this fall, and that's great. So, but at this point, their desire to auction, their desire to move forward to some extent is based on the fact that we have been, until now, unable to do so. So we have to understand that we're not, their lack of desire to collaborate with us is based in part on, those guys have yet to perform well. So, why, if I'm a council member, why am I gonna, I can auction this, I've got realtors that are pushing me, I've got people who want to buy these things, we know we're making progress, and it's going to be great. And by the end of the summer, it'll be fantastic. But you have to understand where they're looking at history to some extent. So it's just to kind of temper where we are with them. There is some logic behind their reluctance to embrace us. How's that?
Bob, I just want to say it has been the title issues with the city that have held us up more than anything. So I think if we're being accurate about what happened, it was not just that we were ineffective in our side of things.
But the council doesn't understand that.
They should, right?
Right. So.
Well, and just to be fair, though, the title issues, yes, there were issues with Corporation Counsel's office, but a lot of the properties that we first started with all had bad title, and we still are not accepting because they have bad title and they're on your questionable list because of the bad title. So it just happened to be that the first 5 or 6 properties that we spent a lot of time on all were ones that were bad. The last couple of batches have gone really quickly and relatively smoothly, with Corp Counsel's office. So we do have to temper that too with, the process. We've done a lot of title work and we've transferred 5 properties. The city hasn't sold 5 property or, basically 5 properties in a year in a really long time. So, we are, just we're among friends here, but just I do think we do need to just temper our anger there. So. But I'm done. So I've taken up too much time. Thank you all very much for the feedback. It's much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Steve. I think, I think like Bob said, I think, this summer we're going to our work will become very tangible. And I think that will really, really help. And then I think also this sort of effort to actually put together real information. Like I wish it wasn't sort of on us to prove like why the land bank ought to be here. But one thing that, I definitely heard at the finance and audit meeting, and I assume if one person is saying it, other people are thinking it, is just this sort of idea that the city ought to be doing all of the stuff that the land bank is here to do on the city side. And like, it's not a indictment in any form of the city for not having the resources and capacity to be a land bank as well. And so I think like, you know, the track record of what happens to those auctioned properties, like if it really were the case that you auction a property and then somebody moves in and just, you know, a great neighbor and that's that, like it doesn't solve an affordability problem, but it does, you know, like it's hard to make a really strong argument against it, but that's not what happens. What actually happens is like people sit on these things and they fall apart and they're vacant, and like I think the more that we can back that up, the more the council will understand, because you know, I think we also have to remember like our council is just normal people. They're not, you know, especially uniquely qualified in matters of public policy and housing, and I don't expect them to fully understand like what a land bank is for and what kind of specific hole it fills in the city's capacity. So like I agree that we need more contact with them. I'm not sure that we should bring them into trying to create our policy, because I think that's kind of what we're here to know better about. If that
Yeah, Daniel, we have like 30 minutes left in the meeting, so.
is
Another-
fast. Okay, can we move on? Sorry. Okay. Oh God, Mike. We're gonna skip public comments, I think, because we have no public. Cool. Mike.
Thank you, Daniel. I'll be brief. So no updates on the pre-development or construction side, other than what Daniel had said. We tend to speak with the same voice on those. I will say that Owen's been doing a great job out there, not only working on the 3 sites, but supervising the clean out of Greenkill, which went great. Kept the next door neighbor happy. She was hoping to actually jump on the call tonight, but I think that's going real well. We should have landscaping contract in place soon on the houses that are able to have their grass mowed. So that's my only update on the sites under construction. Sales updates. I know the comms committee has some great updates, so I won't try to steal their thunder. Similarly, on the funding side, I think there's some great updates on enterprise and our progress with that grant. And I will mention there's a new term sheet coming out that would be specifically tailored towards land banks. It may be exclusively tailored towards land banks by the state. I'm having some good conversations with the people who will be releasing that probably next month. And next month is also when CFA comes out, which is the $550 million for affordable housing in New York State. So stay tuned on that. That will get me down to other, which is construction walkthroughs. Every single person, a board member on this meeting, raised their hand and said they wanted to attend a site walkthrough. I know it's on a Monday, the 10th, and thank you, Alana. I think you were the one person who's responded so far. Does anybody else have the time at 10 a.m. on Monday the 10th to go? Going once, going twice? Okay. Oh, Daniel will definitely be there. I will be there. Owen will be there. Alana will be there. Looking forward then to seeing you at the next one. And then a little bit of housekeeping. We've been talking about it. Does anybody mind putting up our land bank email addresses next to our names on our website? Does everybody, nobody minds? Everybody thumbs up? Cool. Thank you. That's it. I'll do that maybe tonight, tomorrow. Thanks. I'm done.
That was great. Thank you. Bob, do you have a committee report for us?
I do, and it'll be brief as well.
Thank you, sir.
As Steve mentioned, the list of 36 has been annotated, discussed, and sent discussed with Novo as well, and sent to the mayor for transmission. So that's great. I'm glad he's thought it through to the next step. That's important. We discussed the draft process for Pathway 2 projects, and it came up, thank you, Alana, that we need public input sometime in this process. So we had a discussion about that, and one of the things we decided was to draft a process for acquisition of houses, which includes a public participation part early in the acquisition process. My view is always that you should talk to the public early and see what they have to say, and instead of coming to them with something already decided, because that doesn't go well in my experience. They don't like to be told what you're going to do. So we've circulated that partially. I'm waiting for feedback. Give me feedback if you have it. Mike is always great at feedback, so I'll nag him. And that's where that's at. The revised pricing for the 3 houses, we've seen that developed by Mike. It's great. The new chart was distributed and it should increase the candidate pool. So hopefully we'll hear more about that with the communication. And the last 2 pilot program houses are being acquired this month. I hope. We did 149 Greenkill, 124, 126 Franklin, I guess is on the cusp. So that'll complete the 5 pilots for this year. And that's all there is for acquisitions and disposition. What did I leave off? Those of you who are members of the committee.
We will be revising our disposition policy. We just, it's a priority, just not the highest priority, right? Also, I just wanted to add, if you guys can't make walkthroughs but do want to go through the houses, just let me know. I'll take you. I took Ganeshka this weekend. It was a blast. Karen.
All right, quick question for acquisition disposition. So Bob, you said that you circulated something that you wanted us to review.
I circulated it to the committee first, and once it's done with that, I'll circulate it to the board. But I thought, let's get the input of those that are, stages. So it'll be expected, and it'll be exciting. You'll love it.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Karen, would you like to speak about the fundraising committee?
I would love to.
I would love it.
We met, Omari Aneshka and I, we continue to discuss a pandemic appropriate event for the second half of 2021. Aneshka said she will discuss with the communications committee on the best way to showcase the land bank at a public event like that. Omari is reaching out to some local business owners to gauge an interest in hosting an event, and also suggested that once we have something established, that perhaps asking Radio Kingston if they would like to live stream the event. So that's very much just in the works, baby stages. We are also working, Aneshka took on drafting a template acknowledgement letter for donations, individual donations. And I think I did see that you sent a draft, so I'm sorry, I have to have a look at that. In terms of our goal of 30,000 in January for offsetting the purchase price of the final 2 homes of the pilot, we did get a letter of approval from the Hudson Valley Foundation for Youth Health, which Serena helped connect us to, so for $2,000, so that's very exciting. And we also received an award letter for $5,000 from the Ulster County Charitable Foundation, Ulster Savings Charitable Foundation. So we're $7,000 there. Sawyer Savings declined to provide us with any funding, as did Peckham Foundation, although Peckham did provide an avenue for appeal. They meet quarterly to review grant applications, so I thought we would reach back out and, and a lot has happened between when we first submitted that application and now, so we might be able to work on that. Sorry. And that's really most of our fundraising committee meeting. Any questions? All right.
Thank you. And then, sorry, I am going to learn this. Does it go right back to you for finance?
I think so.
Okay.
So for finance, Erica and her team did provide us, one of her staff, April Thomas, joined our meeting, which was great to meet one of her staff. And they did provide us with budget to actual for January and February, which was really great to see. We did discuss having that Erica would also provide a narrative, which would sort of help explain the figures. And then, so we're hopeful to be able to provide that at the next board package, that you will, see sort of how we're, how things are being laid out in terms of money being spent, expenses being reached in accordance with the budget that was passed. Erica, did you have anything else you wanted to contribute on that?
No, so the March financials, this is the platform that we want to share with the public, and then we'll have more of a in-depth narrative that will go out to the board with more specific details that I feel like are more of an internal option, if everyone's okay with that. And then if there's certain items that we want to make sure that we share publicly, we can add that into the board package that is released.
Thank you. We did also talk about the audit that is due at the end of May. Given the 60-day extension from the authority's budgets office, and Erica and Mayor Noble had a good conversation about, Mayor Noble very kindly offered to have his staff work on sort of securing invoices and receipts that are needed. Apparently there's just been a lot of difficulty getting those from the previous staff. I don't know, Erica, if you wanted to provide an update just on how the audit process is going in general, or if we're happy to you're just continuing working on it.
So there's one lingering item that we're working on, and we are in a good position. The financials have been drafted. I think we kind of mentioned that in our finance call. There hasn't been any major changes from there. We're just waiting on that kind of final step. As far as the invoices go, I met with Mike on Friday night, and I have the boxes of every document, land bank,
everything.
It's sitting right next to me, and I'm gonna have my staff just scan everything in and create a retention folder of all things Kingston Land Bank that we can find, whether it's an invoice or a contract. So we have electronic records of everything.
If I could just add to that, I was going to give Erica a shout out for driving from Poughkeepsie on a Friday night to come to Kingston and pick up all that material. And it's a lot, and it's not organized, and it is what it is. But I also did just want to say, Karin, I think at the next finance meeting, we'll have a more specific update on some of the details or challenges on a more granular level with the audit, and be happy to provide that at the next one.
Great, thank you. And then I think there is the process of moving our funds to M&T Bank has been initiated. At least I sent I believe the last approval that was needed, at least from the board level, for that to be initiated. And we're leaving $15,000 at Catskill Hudson for now, just to be able to close out any invoices that might be coming through that way. So that is in process. Any questions? Great.
Sorry, I have a job, I forgot. Thank you. Bartek, you guys have had a busy month. Tell us about it.
So the main work that's happening right now is obviously to figure out the next marketing round. And there's a few more pieces that need to come together before we could set that release and make that public. I think perhaps I can just go through some of the changes that we're making for this marketing round. with the caveat, obviously, that nothing is set in stone yet. So first, this marking period will be 30 days instead of the 45 days that we had initially. That's because our name, is out there to some extent, and as well as the requirements that potential applicants will have to do are considerably less and easier. So that was the basis of shortening that time window. We are posting finished packages on our website. So there was a lot of, I think, confusion about the properties and about the state that they were in, and also some confusion about, general information about the properties. So though last time we did post floor plans about each home, they weren't very easy to navigate to. So we'll be creating finished packages that Daniel's helping with that will include mood boards of what the houses will look like post construction. That would also include floor plans. And also posting a little bit more language about how we're completely renovating each home. We are also sending potential applicants to our website rather than sending them to RUPCO's portal. So if someone is interested, they'll just have to submit a very simple form via our website rather than being taken to RUPCO's site. We also have a new partner in the form of Hudson River Housing. In addition to RUPCO, that will be sending potential applicants to our site, and that will also help to qualify individuals that express interest. And then the last potential piece here, which thus far I've only discussed with Mike, is possibly doing some kind of in-person informational meeting once the period starts, just to put a face to the land bank, and also help out someone that might not know quite where to start or if they qualify, or so on. And then obviously, of course, the requirements this time around will be much looser and not quite as strict. So hopefully our applicant pool is greatly expanded this time around. Those are some of the main differences for this round that I'm currently expecting. Does anyone else from the comms committee want to mention anything?
No, I think the main thing is that we do want to make this a personal, literally a physical possible meeting to help people navigate what they may think of as a complex problem. It is a complex project, right? So that's what I'm looking forward to, like literally figuring out a way in this COVID time to figure that out and give people an opportunity to ask lots of questions that pertains to their particular situation.
So I'm wondering about the 30-day marking period. It feels very short. So could you speak more to why you chose that time frame?
Again, nothing is set in stone. Originally, our first marking period, I believe, was going to be 30 days, but we extended it to 45 because we were new and didn't really have our name out there. So the 30-day period would still allow us to get the word out about the properties again and about the updated guidelines, but also, make sure that we're able to get people into these homes this year and not stretch out the timeline too much. So that was the thinking there.
I would agree with Omari. I'd stick with the 45 days personally. But
Yeah, I'm just concerned, like, if we have another period where we don't receive applicants that meet the criteria, because we did lower the income requirements, right? And so I think that is going to play some part in maybe even narrowing our pool a little bit more. Or maybe not, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think I would say with the 45-day period, it was somewhat obvious early on that we weren't going to be able to find applicants. But we were stuck with this, longer period that we have to let play out. So perhaps the 30-day period would be, give us some flexibility for any future marketing rounds for one or more property. That being said, I'm totally fine with the 45-day period if that's what the board agrees on.
Mike, do you want to speak to the marketing period decision?
Not to the timeline. I think that's something people should, pick a number and go with it. I would say, just a clarification, Omari, we didn't lower the income levels for any of the buildings. We increased the household size tolerances, which had the effect of dropping the price. It's more of a math problem than anything, but I just wanted to say that.
No,
Can
I
I-
mean, thanks for saying that, but I think for like someone seeing it out in the street, they're going to be like, oh,
Yeah,
well.
totally. I think that's why it's so important to make sure, we communicate with as many people in the right way.
Yeah.
That we can.
I appreciate that.
For the sake of moving it along, I think it seems fine as somebody on the committee to extend it to 45 days. I don't think 15 days is gonna knock anything out of the park either way, and it gives us more time to do better outreach, make sure people have what they need to apply. So I think it seems fine to me.
Should we do a super quick vote? Just how people are feeling about time frame? Okay, why not? I guess all in favor of, I guess, A or B, 30 days or 45 days. So 30 days, raise your hand. 45 days. Yeah, I think 45 days took it. Does that work? Okay. I would feel better because realistically, like, we really don't want to do this a third time, both just optics wise, but also like if the expectation is that we drop the prices again, then there's, another tens of thousands of dollars of revenue that we budgeted for and will not be getting. So I think let's give ourselves the best chance at success. Cool. Bartek, does that wrap up the
It
concept?
does, yes. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much for all your work. Aneshka,
Can I just add to Bartek's report that once we're ready to start marketing, that while the communications committee does a lot of work, it should be everybody's job to help promote and get the word out to unlikely places, like really make this an incredibly successful round. That's all. It's our job to give you the information, and then it's all of our jobs to do this. As Mike said, within the parameters of like a spreadsheet or some order, so that we're not all reaching out to one person 15 times, but we're collectively reaching out to many people.
And sorry, can I just ask for folks for like 2-person earner households, if they make combined more than the income requirements or income limits, is there a way around that, or is it very strict about like, regardless of if there's one person working or two people? Do you know? Okay.
Mike has an answer, I think.
I'm recognized so by the board chair. Could I make a suggestion, Omari? I was thinking about that when you wrote that email. I've offered, if like, probably not in the right way, to just try to, I think we should all be up to speed on all the different permutations of all the stuff that we're proposing. I'd like to propose a couple of I'll do a couple of Zoom chats with board members, if that's okay, to break it up so we are meeting appropriately in terms of the number of people. Would people be open to that? I'd love to talk about this stuff. Honestly, I really do. And I think if we're all like pretty well informed about it, it gets more exciting, honestly. But would that be okay, Omari? Or yeah, all right. I'll send something around this week. Thank you.
Nashka, we didn't meet, but do you have a report anyway?
No, I don't. We didn't meet. Thanks.
Cool. We, I think, can skip public comments. Cool. New business. I wanted to alert you guys. So I think we talked about this briefly, like probably a year ago, and some of you guys are sort of aware, but so obviously we were not budgeting for this large structural change order over at 174 Hasbrook. It's not great, but ultimately it is good for that house. So in part to try to alleviate some of the budget pressure, and in part because I think it's kind of cool, I started talking to the Kingston Design Connection again. They, for the past 3 years, have done a Kingston Design Show House. It's a pretty cool thing. They bring in all local designers, artists, makers, small businesses, and over the course of a few weeks, do a ton of work on a house and then exhibit it for 2 weeks. In the past, they have donated their proceeds to the People's Place. It's a cool thing. And so we have spent a lot of time talking over the last few weeks, and it looks very likely that they will be taking 174 Hasbrook for their 4th annual Kingston Design Show House. And so basically what that does for us, I think number one, it's a really cool, just sort of cross-promotional branding, really interesting thing. I haven't heard of this done elsewhere. And number two, it should save us a whole bunch of money on the back end of this renovation, since we are front loading this budget really hard on the structural work. So they will put in a kitchen for us. They will put in the bathroom. They will paint and wallpaper and light fixtures and all kinds of good stuff. And it'll be a cool opportunity for members of the public to see one of our houses. And ultimately, it will, I think, create a nicer house, because the stuff they tend to put in is pretty nice. So it is not set in stone. We have a couple little things to get through, but they've walked a couple designers through the house already, because we need to, know if we need to change locations of fixtures and stuff. And I've spent a lot of time talking to the contractors about it. They're totally on board. So they're working through scope changes and adjusting pricing and everything. So all of that is kind of pending, but just so you guys are aware, that's a little what I've been trying to make happen in the background, and I think it's looking good. So that's that.
Can I raise a question about that, Daniel?
Please do.
I don't know, like, if this is like the last, I know it's 8 o'clock, so I haven't eaten dinner, I'm starving, I don't want to prolong this, but I don't know this company that well. A brief glance at their website, to me, at least gives the impression of an entity that I like politically, they appear, and I'm being judgmental, so I will own that and not take, like, I would like to do some further research. They suggest to me an entity that may be connected to gentrification of homes, flipping of homes, like maybe not fully mission or value aligned. I mean, I get that they're giving proceeds to nice charities, but like Nan Potter, who just is selling Chiz's Heart, also gives coats to like children who need them. So I don't think that necessarily giving money to good charities is the full picture. So I would just want to make sure that this is a company that isn't responsible for connected to flipping homes or things that sort of cause displacement. So again, I don't know anything. I just, the pictures on their website, they painted them that color that are all the like Brooklyn gentrified slate blue gray houses. Like this is a very gut reaction. I'm totally owning that, but I would want to know that they're aligned before we partnered with them.
That is fair. I would encourage anybody who wants to talk to them to do so. I can try to set a meeting if that's of interest. You know, they are not they do this one event once a year. That's what they do. Everybody involved in it is a design professional in some way. So I'm certain that some of them have, you know, worked on houses that were flipped or just improved properties and therefore their value. And it's a rich and complicated topic, but as a entity, I think they're really very much about trying to give, you know, local creatives a real platform to show their work and get clients. And you know, I think I fully hear you. I mean, I think honestly for them, some of this is to address some of that, because short of something like this, like how else are they supposed to do it? So in the past, like they have done a house that that person Airbnbs it, and you know, that values wise, I don't think really aligns with us, but it was somebody that allowed them to come in and do this project in their house. And, you know, there's only so many choices. So I think they're really excited because this is the kind of thing that they really want to do, but like haven't really had an avenue in the past. So, but yeah.
That's cool. And you don't have to, I mean, I will do my research. I think I just wanted to note it. I mean, I'm like opinionated. That's not news to anybody here. But I do, like, I think it maybe is another time a conversation about contractors. And I mean, obviously you guys are making lots of good decisions about our contractors, but just making sure as we bring in new partners that there is some metric around mission alignment and values. So we don't have to talk more about it. I will do my work, but my follow-up. And I thank you for your work of trying to keep this stuff cost effective. I appreciate it.
You're the best. But yeah, if you want to like have a call or a meeting or something like
That'd be great. Cool.
I'm talking a lot. So cool. I think that's it for me. Does anyone else have new business? Exciting news? Unexciting news? I lost my glasses. Okay, I guess that's it. Shall we vote to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you so much, everybody. Good to see you. Enjoy the improving weather and have a good night.
Bye.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, guys.